There are only two ways for somebody to become a high performer. And you might not be in either of those two categories. So I'm about to tell you what those two categories are. But if for whatever reason you are not part of those two categories, I'm also going to give you an actionable game plan on how to make yourself a high performer. I think it's safe to say that we all know that every person out there who has ever created something great or done something great or become an athlete or an entrepreneur or anything like that, they all tend to be high performers, right? There's not a single person that you can give me right now or tell me that has achieved great success that was not a high performer. Like, we can literally sit here for days, weeks, or months, or even years, and there's not one person, right? The chances of somebody getting lucky and just becoming the best of the best by not performing at a high quality or rigorously performing are very low, right? I think it's safe to say that, and I think almost everybody would agree. And so even if there is some anomalies out there, which there could be, just like there is with anything, majority of high performers usually tend to come from two types of categories of people. And so the first way is through adversity. The most prime example that I can give you guys, and I think this is probably the most common one that people hear about, I'm going to talk about sports, right? Because there's a lot more people that know things about sports and how athletes became these high performers and their stories behind like what happened, because almost everybody loves athletes, right? Almost everybody loves either basketball or football or baseball or soccer or tennis or like just about any sport out there, literally any sport in the entire world. Not everybody likes sports, but I'm going to use sports as an example because I think more people can connect with somebody who's a high performer in a specific sport, right? Most athletes, most of them, and especially the ones that were able to accomplish great things, they all had adversity. Every single one of them, right? They grew up in rough backgrounds. They grew up with a single parent. They grew up in low income households. They were involved in gangs, or they didn't grow up in great neighborhoods, or the school system wasn't great. Like, the list is endless, right? There's so many obstacles that athletes face to actually get to that angle. Like, there's very few athletes that actually came from a very healthy background, meaning like they had the money, they never had to worry about money, they were in a good neighborhood, they had both parents, they had very loving parents, and on and on and on, right? For sure they exist, but most commonly it's the adversity, right? Most people that deal with adversity, they end up creating this internal story in their head where they're like, man, I need to perform at such a high level and I need to make sure I get this done and I make it to the pros because it's my only way out. Most athletes think that way. Most athletes are like, I need to get out of the place that I'm in and I'm the only one that can save my family. I'm the only one that can save myself, and that's the only path I got, right? They get locked in on this one path. They're constantly fighting against that adversity. They're constantly fighting against that story of where they came from. The same thing with entrepreneurs. Most high performers, even high performers employees, there is a ton of employees who work for companies that are high performers, whether they make $5,000 a month, $20,000 or $100,000 a month. Any employee at any spectrum, right? You could be working at a warehouse and be a high performer. I used to work at a warehouse, so I can say this proudly. I used to work at a warehouse. I was a high performer. I was one of the best. For real. Like, I was like, I want to be the best. I want to finish the fastest because I want to move up and I just want to be done with this job quickly and have more time of a break, right? Whatever the reasoning is, like, you could be a high performer in anything, and it usually comes from that place. Like, you have this chip on your shoulder. And so there's a lot of pros to coming from having that mindset. There's also cons, right? Coming from that place builds massive amounts of stress, like massive amounts of stress, to the point where like you're constantly wondering how you're going to figure things out. You're constantly bored, or you're stressed, or you end up having health issues or financial issues or something because you're constantly chasing. But that constant chase of greatness, that constant chase of trying to make something big of yourself is a heavy pro that most people that are high performers and accomplish something great have that. They have that tenacity to just want to accomplish everything and anything. And so the second way, which there's also a ton of people on this, and this is actually, I love number one for sure, but I also love number two because this is the one where I think most parents fail. Right. And I constantly think about this because I have 3 kids, and I'm always wondering, like, how am I going to teach my kids to have the same type of resilience, right? To be willing to work towards adversity day in and day out so that they can actually accomplish the life of their dreams. And that second way is culture, right? It's culture, it's emotional stability, it's love, it's a foundation, having a strong foundation internally in the family, spiritually, everywhere. And that helps build a solid structure and foundation where they can compound on it. right? It's like building blocks. Like you have these strong building blocks. It's just like building a house. So the house has a strong foundation, it can withstand anything. And so it's the exact same thing. And so when you have these strong support systems, it helps build strong resilience. And with that strong resilience, you also have high standards. When you have high standards, you don't settle for mediocrity, right? You know what the expectations are. Their expectations are high because that's what you're instilling in them. And so it's the same thing like when you think about a Navy SEAL, right? A Navy SEAL might not be a high performer before they go into it, or maybe they kind of have some of these traits, but most Navy SEALs, or not most, all Navy SEAls are high performers. Why? Because they build a culture around having a strong foundation, being disciplined, and having strong like emotional character as well. And it's one of the things that a lot of people lack. Like I lack that heavily, right? So I might have been fighting adversity as I was growing. I didn't really have a strong emotional foundation. I had a good family. My parents were both there. We never really suffered with money, but emotionally, like I lacked that. Which is why I believe I struggled. Like I never made my first $1 million till my 30s, right? So think about that, which is great, but what if you could do that sooner, right? What if it doesn't have to take you to your 30s? There's people who it takes them to their 40s, 50s, 60s, and that's just what it is, right? It could be the wrong business, it could be their foundation, it could be so many different things. But what if you can have that strong foundation and actually be able to accomplish the life of your dreams significantly quicker? And so when you have that and you're constantly stacking these building blocks, you have a clear vision and there's literally nothing that can get in your way to help you accomplish that, right? Not because of adversity, not because you're trying to prove somebody wrong, but just because you have such strong confidence that there's nothing that will get in your way. And so I personally like both, right? I personally think about this all the time. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do everything that I can to teach my kids how to have this strong foundation, whether it's emotionally, spiritually, physically, all these different things. But what if I can also help them see how to use adversity to their advantage, right? Imagine if you can use both. If you can actually use both, like there's literally nothing that can stop you. Like literally nothing and nobody that can stop you from creating the life of your dreams. These two traits are the two most common traits that I have seen in every single high performer that I have ever met in my life. They either have some type of adversity, they're trying to prove somebody right, or they're trying to get out of the discomfort that they were in growing up and the story that they created, or B, they had all these strong foundational components that helped them execute at a high level. If you have neither of those, right? Let's say you don't have that strong emotional foundation, psychological foundation, spiritual foundation, and maybe you have some adversity, but you just haven't quite tapped into it, right? Maybe you just don't know how. Maybe you just don't even know that it's there. Maybe you're very distracted to the point where like, you haven't even noticed that it's there. You haven't even realized that you can actually use it to your advantage. I'm about to tell you right now how you can create version number 3, right? And it's basically combining both of these in a way that will allow you to become a high performer. And so again, being a high performer, I strongly believe this can help you attain anything that you want in your life, whether it's a very loving, strong family with a spiritual foundation, whether it's making millions of dollars, whether it's becoming the next Mozart, whether it's becoming the next NBA player, whether it's becoming the next president, whatever the case is, like you need to have both of these things in one way, shape, or form. And so the first thing that you need to implement to actually create this foundation is you need to have strong non-negotiables, right? What are non-negotiables? Non-negotiables are things that you commit to on a daily basis that you say you're gonna do no matter what. So when you have these non-negotiable standards in place, it allows you to become disciplined. It allows you to actually follow through. It gives you confidence to know that you can repetitively, consistently do the same thing over and over and over again. This then leads on to the second thing. The second thing is to create controlled challenges. What does that mean? It's basically setting up your environment in a way that is controlled, where nobody can get in your way and nobody distracts you from accomplishing that, right? An example would be, hey, I want to make sure I go to sleep at 9 p.m. every day, but every time I go to my bed, the TV is there. Well, maybe you should take the bed out, right? Another idea would be like, hey, I'm constantly on social media. Well, maybe you should delete your social media. You get to find all these different things in your radar that distract you from actually focusing on what you need to do. And so if you can identify all those things and then extract them, you're well on your way to becoming that high performer. The third thing is creating something called a feedback loop. A feedback loop is basically where you're basically tracking everything that you do on a day-to-day basis, whether it's your sleep, whether it's a task that you're doing, whether it's personal tasks, working out tasks, or whether it's tasks towards the goal that you're trying to accomplish, and actually looking at it and being like, what am I actually doing with my time? Am I actually spending enough time doing the thing that's gonna help me get to the next step and the next goal? And if you're not, where do you get to change the patterns in what you do on your day-to-day basis, and where are you applying your time so you can actually apply it and move it towards those steps? And then the fourth thing is actually celebrating the outcomes that you're getting, right? Because a lot of times, like, we get disheartened when, you know, we're a month in, 6 months in, a year in, and we're nowhere near our goals. And here's the thing, like, you have to remember who you were a year ago or 6 months ago and who you are today, and seeing the growth that you have accomplished and have done. Because again, sometimes it's going to take 5-10 years to accomplish that dream, right? Maybe it'll take you a year, but it could take 5 to 10 years. And if you give up after a year because you think you haven't attained it yet, what if you're missing the big picture? What if you're seeing that you haven't yet become the person you need to become to accomplish that, but you are significantly closer today than you were a year ago? So you have to be able to look at that and see the wins, right? You get to see all the small wins, not just the losses and not just what you haven't accomplished. And then the last thing, which is number 5, is protect your energy and your mental health. Right? What does that mean? Again, getting proper sleep, eating good so that you actually have sustainable energy every single day, not getting involved in gossiping and complaining about all these different things that are happening in your life, whether it's the government, your family, or whatever the case is. When we get caught up in all these different things, like, you're basically just pulling your energy physically, psychologically, mentally, and applying it into things that don't matter. And so if you can learn to also extract that, there is no reason why you can't accomplish the life of your dreams. If you can do these 5 things every single day consistently, again, it might take you a month, it might take you a year, it might take you 5 or even 10 years. I have zero doubt that you can actually make it happen. And so again, just a reminder, adversity will always work. Having an emotional, strong, psychological, and spiritual foundation will also work. But if you can apply both and apply these 5 different techniques into your day-to-day life every single day, there's absolutely no reason why you can't make it happen. So let me know which of these, you resonate with the most. Are you currently applying any of these 5 recommendations? Are you the person that comes from adversity? Are you the person that has a strong emotional foundation? Or are you working towards all of them? If there's anything that I can help you with, drop a comment down below. I can make a YouTube video on it. I can drop you a comment on there. And I'm just here to help as many people as possible, because I know firsthand how difficult it can be when you haven't done the internal work and you actually haven't had somebody teach you, right? Because I didn't have somebody to teach me. I have to look out. I have to look for the mentors. I have to look for the coaches, and I have to look and do the internal work. And so I'm blessed to be able to in a position, in a place today where I can help people and I can teach you all these things. So I hope all this stuff helps you guys. That is all I got for today, and I will catch you on the next video. Peace out.